I started as a volunteer for Literacy Council, and now I do work there. It is a small independent nonprofit where we train volunteers to serve as one-on-one tutors or very small class teachers for adults. We have two programs. One is adult basic literacy. So those are folks from the United States who want to improve their reading, their writing, their math, maybe do GED preparation. We serve people who may be learning the sounds of letters, and we may be serving people who are trying to score well enough on the entrance exam at Cape Fear that they don't have to take the developmental classes. So it's a wide range of people, all adults. And then we also have an ESOL program, English for speakers of other languages, that serves adults from other countries who want to be able to communicate effectively, live more comfortably in the United States, to be able to speak. And so a few people will need to ask me, that's my job. And by far, I think the most important and interesting part of our presentation is going to be James and Kathy. But if you all don't mind, I would love to get just a little bit of, could you say your name and where you grew up, what you want to teach? I kind of got it, but it's easier if I hear it in order, if you don't mind. And if you have any teaching experience already.
My name is Dana, and I live in the Brunswick County area in Golden Beach.
Oh, wow, that's a long commute.
It's not too bad, let's get used to it. But I'm going for middle grades education, social studies, and language arts.
Okay.
And so far I've just done a little bit of volunteer work at UC Virgo, but other than that, I've not really done
Great.
actual teaching.
Are you still there this semester? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
It was last semester.
Hi, I'm Anne Wilmeth, and I also live near Golden Beach. And my major is going to be mathematics and social studies.
Okay.
And as for, I don't really have any teaching experience, but I have a daughter who's
Okay.
10, so that's
yes.
an experience, I would say. So. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carol. I commute from Onslow County.
This is so fun.
So my concentration is language arts and social studies. I was a military brat, lived all over the country. Then I was a Marine, and now I'm a Marine wife. So yes, we've been many places. And I've done 2 semesters of avid tutoring, one in high school and one in middle school.
Okay.
My name's Lindsay.
That's a good. That's good.
I'm from Raleigh, and I'm going to be math and science. And I did DC Virgo too last semester.
And I consider you all brave. I think that middle school is the age range that most people avoid, right? Isn't it the first? Yeah. So thank you for what you're doing. So do you all want to introduce yourselves?
Sure.
Sure.
Kathy Webb. I taught middle school for 20 years. I was a middle school science teacher. And then into biology. I was in sciences. And then I worked myself into what I used to call combat teaching. And GEDs, pregnant teens, and so on. And then I had teenagers of my own, so that I became a real estate broker. But anyway, but I consider myself a teacher my whole life, because real estate is teaching too. Just teaching them how to do different things, or trying to. So, and I have 2 children, and my husband was a college professor.
Oh.
My name is James Drummer, what everybody calls me James. And my skill was like everybody could read with me. And but I would beat them, anyway.
You would beat them at what,
Well,
James?
wait. You're ready. All right, all right, go ahead.
Good.
No, well, just when you were,
Okay.
you knew your numbers, right? You knew your numbers, you knew your, did you want us to start, or did you want us to start? Okay, but when you say you beat them, you weren't telling them what you could and couldn't do. How was that?
Yeah. Well, I couldn't read. They put a record back there, and, I couldn't read it. I didn't. could read the record. I could not read how many beats, but I know for myself what I usually do was count the beat in every record. I don't care how many records you put in front of me. I had to train myself to count the beats. Every record sounds the same.
So every song record, what you put on.
So he was, when you were DJing, and you had an assistant.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But first he had to learn how to count the beats.
Okay.
When she learned how to count, every record got the same beat. If you ever listen to music, everyone got the same one. But they didn't know I couldn't read. But they couldn't understand how I would put it in, use quickness on them, because I felt like you can read, so you know what to do. I said, I'm gonna do my thing. So I kind of like come to play records home, mix them up, and like a red marker, a green marker, and a blue marker. Each one of them markers meant something, but they didn't know what what the marker was. And they picked my record up, and my record would have marks all over certain spots on the record, so underlined or most the beat was. And to be honest, I went so everywhere, and did not know I couldn't read for me. But it was probably how I did it, how I played it. But I really felt like that. They know and didn't know.
So you wondered if they knew or not, right?
Yeah. It didn't like, hey man, can you read? You know, it wasn't like that.
Did you watch people a lot?
But see, yes, I always learned through my years of life what you can do. I can do. My motor strength was, you got two hands, I got two hands, you can do it, I'm 1, 2, I can do it. That always been my motivation, my strong, to it.
You did go to school for a while.
Yeah, Mom put me in the front door, I got the side door.
Oh my goodness.
He showed me the school. That's the front door, that's the
Where
side
was
door.
the school?
Oh,
Anybody?
Peabody.
Yeah, my uncle used to be principal there. Honest to goodness, years ago.
Yeah.
It's called Peabody School. James Johnson, he was the black
Yeah,
principal.
yeah.
He's probably the only one they had there.
Yeah, but,
Years ago.
Years ago, the Mr. Dan was tune off Mr. Charles. I used to leave.
You know him, right?
Yeah. I used to leave. He just tried to jump behind me. I used to leave. He couldn't catch me.
But you had other brothers and sisters that went to school.
Yeah, I had my sisters walk in the classroom. I
Right.
did that in the bathroom, and that was it. And that was point blank. That was it.
Why did you dislike school so much?
You know, being honest about it, I really don't know.
Were you scared, or were you embarrassed, or were you intimidated, or you just didn't want to be there? You know, sometimes kids will say, this is boring.
Sometimes I stayed.
What did you find to do when you weren't in school?
Oh, I'll be everywhere. I'll be all downtown, I remember when the first scholarship came in Wilmington. I remember when they welcomed me to go I'll be honest, I was downtown when they bought the ship down there. I was downtown at Wilmington School.
Yeah.
I was down there. When you bought the first submarine down here. Yeah. I was downtown.
It was in the 60s.
I was downtown then, when we finished school. But I always ask somebody, what time is it? And you just look at the clock and tell what time. Okay, I'll be in school. Yeah. Going back to school then.
Go back, catch the bus home.
No,
Walk.
yeah, no, we walked. We
That's right.
walked from Peabody to Taylor home.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
I had, be real. I had a deepish course. It wasn't nothing bad. It was just a deepish. We always wanted to look and see what's new or where. And a lot of people don't know this today. The first bus company was downtown. The horses was downtown.
Oh, yeah, I remember
And,
that.
a lot of people, the sugarcane boat came in that was downtown.
The bones.
So you were skipping school on all of
Yeah,
those
so
times
then,
you were downtown?
You were downtown. You were
I was
downtown.
grabbing in all the technology, you know, for me to
Uh-huh.
venture, you know.
But eventually you did go to school, right?
Yeah, I found him being in the fourth grade,
Okay.
you know, but,
But then you went to a training school.
yeah, I went to training school, that's not where, my mama said, I tell you what, I'll put your place, you won't run away from me now. Because he put me in training school, but what it was, actually I got older, you know, I thought I really looked at it and thought about it. She told me, I'm not trying to send you away. I'm not trying to save your life, son, because I heard you are everywhere, you know, but that was true, you know, because who would see me walking out Cape Fair Road, beside the Cape Fair Road? I was down there, you know what I'm saying? I was down when they had the fish shops down on the backside of Cape Fair River. I remember when they had the first candy place was downtown. That big old brick river, that's where the first candy place came to Wilmington. I was
And the trains, you showed me the trains,
Yeah,
and the trains had the woods behind it.
Yeah, I saw those. You know, a lot of places, a lot of things people don't recognize. But Wilmington tunes, it's moving now. But in a way, I'm kind of glad that I did it. I can't say the word. Adventure.
Adventure, have
Yeah.
adventures,
Yeah,
explore.
because I can tell y'all because y'all never see it. You know,
Right.
you know, in the first ice house across town. You know, the boys' club, the trains back into Wilmington to let the people out. Then they turn around and come back and go out. You know, but a lot, you know, I ventured it. You know,
Yeah, I know,
you know, but
You had adventures.
oh yeah, I was like, what's his name was? It was a cartoon where he was a venturer. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Adventure. Okay, yeah. And then eventually, well, you did a lot of different things. You were a mechanic, you were
Yeah, but see,
longshoreman.
yeah, after I went to school,
To the
when I
training
was training
school.
school, I used to do it with my hands. So I started working on, first thing you work on lawnmower. If you can't fix a lawnmower, you can't fix no car. That was the first, you push the lawnmower till you wouldn't run, you got to, when you get to the next class, you got to make sure this lawnmower runs.
That's a good skill.
Yeah, but the thing's different now. I was, you know,
That was when a
sometimes-
carburetor made things work.
Yeah,
Now
the
it's
carburetor.
a little
computer,
shape or something.
yeah, I take the carburetor, throw a bunch of tape and put it back together.
You can do that now.
Yeah. But,
That's,
So that there was a lot of, what I found with James is that there was a lot of learning. It wasn't this kind of learning, but there was a lot of learning. And an experiential background that was quite amazing. And I learned a few things. Anyway, but then, you know, but then there were things that you couldn't do, right?
right. You know, sometimes I really think about it. And I really feel bad about myself because I should have stayed. What I know now, I'd have been smarter. You know.
but we all have those feelings. We all have those feelings.
But you
Yeah,
wanted
but-
to read to your son, right?
Yeah, but he didn't come to later. But doing the things technologies now, see, I'd have been ready with it because I would be able to read, I could be able to write, I could be able to look at as vision goes on. I got two little boys, and
Do you read to them now?
yeah. Ooh, I felt good now. Read.
What's that book we read? We were reading.
Green.
Red.
One fish, two fish?
No, we
It was
did.
the
Oh, no, we
Isn't
did
it-
Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah.
I know the Dr. Seuss, the Dr.
Yeah.
Seuss
The
book.
Dr. Seuss books.
And
Yeah.
then we got
Yeah.
to the fish. We got to red fish, white fish.
Yep, that's what it is, right.
Fish,
You know, and you just don't know. I put them in my last and I can able to conversation with them, you know,
Uh-huh.
and where I didn't understood why my mom kept pushing me towards it,
Right.
and I kept ducking it, going.
You couldn't see the reason why she wanted you to be able to read and stay in school.
No, because you know, I always, you know, I had a wagon. I go in the woods with a hatchet and tie up lighter and sell it. I used to go to A&P was on Front Street. Was
An A&P store?
Yeah, that was an A&P. I would take my wagon, go down there 50 cents, put people groceries home, I used to carry them, the little, cut up little lighter like that, you know, lighter to put it in.
Sure, I know how to do that. I've done that, I'm a country girl too. And I
And
can
then-
remember A&P down on Front Street.
But then
Yeah.
later on, you went to the, was it a radio station on Castle Street?
But they don't, they don't, put that on, I know how to do this, and I'm on the convention. I had a friend, he was going to the radio station. And I was just talking like we talking,
Right,
you know, they come in there and see what you're doing, so I learned that.
Right.
But my vision was, to me, you can do that, you can, you know, that's
Just
what
show
my-
you.
Yeah, all I want you to do is show me the plans, I got it. And I used to love to play music. And I said, kind of on the radio, people be calling in, man, who that, you know? And I did like, the first black radio station was on Castle Street.
What was the name of it?
You gave me the HMR?
Really?
Yeah, the first,
I have it written down, so, yeah.
it was the first, and there's a lot of people I know who work to the radio station. I used to, the other people go home, I didn't want to go home. It was my dynamic to learn everything about this. That was my dynamic. And that's when I got into records and
Then DJing.
DJing was, that was nothing, but that was to my vision for me to really catch people and know what they like, know what song. But see, most DJs now, they don't play for your people. They play for themselves. Me, I didn't go that route. I went to the route to play for them because I know what they like and when they like. I had my marker, yeah, you know, I always had my little markers with me, you know, and I have them stacked up, and like people will come back, yeah, you played everybody good, I got you. It was already, you know, already had my little, you know.
Basically, so you had a code for doing that.
Yeah.
And you blended them in, and you did the old, I mean, you had the turntables and the big, you know, the speakers and so on. I mean, it was
I had
bad.
my own setup, you
You
know.
sing it like on a scratch and it goes
I,
on.
I, but a lot of people do all that. To me, that didn't too motivate me. What motivated me, if you can play it. Okay, can you play? You can do all that scratching, but can you play? That was my, you know.
Can you?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But now, yeah, but okay. But why don't you do it anymore?
I kind of like step down.
Yes.
But be honest about it. Every club I goes in now, you know, come on, man. These people ask me to come back because they didn't know that.
Remember you.
Yeah. I got. But anyway,
That must be a good feeling though.
yeah, and no. I tell you why.
Why?
You can't serve two gods.
So you became religious.
I ain't gonna say that I'm religious, but I come into God, and so I kind of just. But you don't know how bad, you know, like I want to make that move, you know, but.
So your faith now is so strong.
That I don't want to go back.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to
Yeah,
it.
but I have, you still know. I have, because I used to be a clown with, you know, I used to, ooh.
Was it faith? This is the faith, I mean, so you probably were using alcohol too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
hanging out there, yeah.
I'm talking, my favorite drink was gin and juice.
Yeah.
You know? You
Mine,
know?
mine was too.
Yeah,
Gin
so
tonic,
once
yeah.
I mean, then just to feed it to me, you know.
Uh-huh.
Come on, I know you know, oh, did you get that buzz? I know the whole floor would never go out the floor all night. I said, God, they was telling the truth.
But let me ask you this.
Y'all, you know, I'm really, you know, I'm really.
Let me ask you, I know, but let me ask you this. Did you decide that you wanted to read once you discovered who you really were and that you really had a higher calling? Did that all come into at the same time?
No. My little boy, he,
He's 16.
yeah, he was 3. And he had, I'm trying to think the name of it. pretty good. I told her, come on, let's go to the park. You say you want to go to the park? I just throw off little things.
Yeah, let's go to the
Yeah,
park.
to let's physical things rather than reading.
Yeah, then I had met Miss Fisher at social service. And I went there for I believe it was help me pay a bill. She said, Florida's application. I said, whoa.
Didn't bring my glasses.
That's my favorite word, you know.
That's your favorite
Yeah,
word?
my
Didn't
favorite
bring my
word.
glasses.
She said, James, tell me the truth. I said, Miss Fisher, I said, I really can't. She doesn't look fine. But that wasn't.
That wasn't really.
That wasn't really true. And she said, what you just tell me? I said, Miss Fisher, I mean, in the office, you know, look on, you know. Miss Fisher, I can't leave, you know. She said, you know what? I got a place for you. But she asked me in a way that she wanted to me be for sure that
You wanted to do
I
it.
wanted. That's when I met.
Oh,
Yes.
great.
I met her, Miss Jackson. You know.
That's such a perfect story.
Mhm.
Do y'all have
Questions?
You know.
Well, I have to tell you a question that I always have, and that is that James could drive. And it still baffles me. Because I remember one day when we did Ing, remember?
Yeah.
And then we did Wilmington,
Mhm.
and oh, that's Wilmington. Oh, that's what that is. And it's like, what? Want to tell that?
Well, you know what? Let me tell you this before you tell the story. Because after the luncheon, my husband was saying, but he drives.
I know that.
And
That's,
get my
How
license
does
every
he
year.
drive?
uh-huh.
He kept saying, but he drives. I mean, he thought about that most of the afternoon.
Yeah.
But since the first time I got my license,
Yes.
and to now I got my license, I get them every 4 years. I go pop them. I get them every time.
How did you do that? That's what I want to know.
Well, it was a while.
He does have one. I know that.
I have a perfect mind. You know,
You memorize.
Can it happen?
Yeah. So that was, I'll be honest with you, I believe that's one of the perfect things God gave me to always to memorize what you see, what you do, where you go, memorize where you go, memorize where you, what's around you, you know.
If I had I wasn't his first tutor, and when I came in to tutor James, remember, I taught a long time, but then I, done other things and retired and so on. And, he would always get in there early, and Yasmin would say he'd come in early and everything. And he'd always have his book, and we'd just break down it. He memorized it. And that's what he was sitting there doing before I was there. He was memorizing it all. Ing, L, B, and B's and F's and, whatever it was, and then it was like, and then I'd say, no, don't do that. And that's when we started to
That's
code.
when she started. What happened? I'll be honest, what happened? I get there early, like, so I can just rest my mind, lock it down.
Were you nervous about going?
After the second time, it went away.
Oh, good.
It went away. And then that's when I really had stopped sitting down and programming my mind back. And I know she gonna call this time. But I was like, kind of noting how she coming. And then she got stopped tricking things around. I said, I thought we were going to do this. No, we're going to the next page over. But she, so that's how she caught me in memorizing.
Or doing things in writing, or doing things on the board, or, right? All
Yeah,
those
now
things.
she don't try, I'm going to tell you this, she don't try to do it. She taking right on the blackboard.
Yeah. So
And she'll tell me the first word, and I got no books, that book's closed, I got to read this, and I got to read,
How dare she?
Like the other day, she wrote me a questionnaire on the board. So when she heard me you know, spelling it. Then I grabbed it. I said, my day is nice. So, she ain't say nothing. She started writing again.
You never know, do you?
No, but she always called me different ways, you know. But I'm proud. I'm proud because the way she coming at me, I'm looking. And she kept coming at me the other way. I wouldn't.
You would have memorized. Tell about the gas tank.
Oh, yeah, I went to, I was always put this fake, I had a fake station now, it was a gas station, because everybody knew me. I said, I'm going to pump one, can you go ahead and put me $10, $5 in? So they had a computer in the inside. So one day, I reckon she forgot. And I'm standing to the pump, right? Pump. No gas. So I'm so used to telling you what pump I'm going to get the gas. So after I started dealing with Miss Kathy, I paid one for the gas. She said, what pump you on? I said, pump 5. She said, okay, it's on. I went there and punched this sign to say, press him, you know, for your gas. I pressed, which we got 93, 89, or 73. And I did it. So I say to myself, I ain't say to her, I laugh at myself, you know. I ain't got to come in there and ask you no more.
I can press here, right? Because it jumps out at you, right?
Yeah,
You know, it's something.
It's like I was, a friend of mine, we went to Dunn. He drove up, and I had to drive back. So we come out of Dunn, you come in the 40. They got Raleigh one side and Wilmington on the other.
Could you read the signs?
No, I could, but I looked up the side and said, Raleigh this way. And I looked over there and said, I said, oh yeah, there goes WIL. Wilmington.
Right,
So now you
exactly.
Yeah.
So I would like to try to relate some of what James and Kathy are talking about to your coursework here, and then also your future as teachers. And I've, you know, like the handouts and everything, but sorry, it's not as interesting. But I do want to make sure that we address any questions that you all have. And I don't know what all you've studied, so if this is redundant, it's just, I mean, have you learned about the components of literacy? Probably the language teachers have.
Well,
They're pretty early.
Oh, okay.
and this, and I guess, you know, you are, think of this is teaching the diverse learner.
Yeah, because you got a lot of kids who might, you know, memorize it and
So these
Well,
are all
only-
strategies that they use.
I feel like
People
they
have-
should, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
Mumpus, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, but people have different coping strategies.
Yeah,
right?
you might be dumber than none, but the next one he snatch it, you know, because
Right.
you know, it's like with her. I had her locked in my mind which way she gonna go, how she gonna go. I had that perfect, you know. The other ones, she starts switching, you know, like.
But that's actually perfect. That's
Yeah.
what we want to talk about. That's approaching things a
Yeah.
lot of
That's
different
what you have
ways.
to do.
A lot, trying to teach things from a lot of different, different strategies, so that different kinds of learners are going to absorb the information, right? Because they, right, sorry. Let me start out with the 4 components of learners, just because I think we need that as a foundation. So the very first one is alphabetics, and that is somewhat like phonics. It's breaking down sounds and putting them back together. And what we do in, we do a 12-hour training on these 4 pieces right here, and like strategies for teaching adults. But we do everything one-on-one. It's our focus. So I'm trying to think about how to apply this for you all. But that is alphabetics is really about hearing sounds, and this is probably, when you have a struggling learner, this is probably the thing that is hard for him or her. And the challenge for you as middle school teachers is that, you know, like this needs to be addressed in elementary school. By the time they're in middle school, they have to be mastering content, which is, you don't have the time or the capacity to stop and focus on, okay, what does CH sound like, right? So,
Can I just piggyback on that? being a middle school teacher, I used to correct spelling in my science kids, and then I'm like, you're not an English teacher. Why did you pick up that was, and I'm like, you know, we have to communicate, and you'd circle this, the spelling thing. So, you can't compartmentalize. You just gotta get them where they are.
And that's what's, I think, hard for the kids, right? Is that if they're struggling just to get through a word, they aren't going to make sense of the paragraph, much less the concept, right? But they might have the intelligence, the capacity, everything to understand it if it's presented a different way. Right?
But, I mean, cut you
No, go
off,
ahead.
but you know, I used to hate.
What?
Hey, she used to give the vowels, the words. Yeah, and I just said, I know that, but.
What, did it make you feel how?
No.
Exactly.
You
Notice we don't do that anymore?
Yeah, but now she got a spelling program now. She got a card. I be set up waiting for her. Yeah, and she flipped. Not flip mental. We all flip. You know what I'm trying to say? Right. Yeah, these are cards she throws at me, and she'll lay them all out, and she'll flip back. But I think it's perfect because she'll lay them out, tell me to pick up what I know. I'm like, I don't know. She said, yeah, you do. But then again, you have to get into that person so that person can get back to you. What I mean back to you, if you push it out, I ain't gonna do that. You haven't got to do that person. You know what I'm trying to say? You happen, how do you say it?
Well, it comes, it's a trust thing, but I think also when you're working with a whole class of, I don't know what, used to be up to 30. I mean, there's one that's doing this and one that's doing, so you've got to figure it out, to do these things. I mean, the one-on-one is really,
That's what a lot of folks probably need. But as teachers, probably you
can't
want to
do that.
focus more on vocabulary and teaching, flashcards may work. Vocabulary, too, has different levels, right? So there's the bottom level where it's like, I've never heard that word before. Then there's, I've heard that word, but I don't really know what it means. And then there's, I've heard that word, I kind of know it, but you don't you're not 100% when you're trying to use it.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's a level where you own it. And I think that, when, you have so much, you will have so much content for them to absorb that you're going to say it once or twice and think, they've got to get it and keep going. But they're going to need so much practice. So the key words, and the words and the directions, the directions for homework, the directions for taking tests, those kinds. My husband teaches high school. He had a kid who didn't understand what true and false questions were. He knew the answers, but he didn't understand circling true or false. But he understood the history. So it's, I don't say all of this to scare you, but there are all these different types of learners with different skills and different understanding. And so the ability to provide information in a way that they can receive it is very important. And I think because you can't go back to the basics and start with the sounds, I would spend a lot of time on vocabulary as a teacher. Comprehension, of course, is understanding what you read. There are things that you can do to really, in our training at the Literacy Council, we do pre-reading activities. We give away the punchlines, we don't make our students discover it because what if they miss it? And then the whole thing is kind of lost. We want them to know where is this going to go. We try as hard as possible to relate it to something else that they know. And we talk about what we're going to read before we read it. And then while we're reading, we discuss it, we ask questions, and make sure that they're understanding while it's happening. And then at the end of it, we talk about it I will, while we're reading, I might say, we're reading a biography, the story of a gentleman who helped start the literacy movement. And I'd say, what did he do? And then what happened? And then what happened? At the end, I might ask, what do you think of him? Because that is going to demonstrate, okay, they've understood and formed in their own opinion, right? Like that's taking the next step in terms of their actual comprehension. And then fluency is the ability to read smoothly and accurately. And that, I have been amazed at my work to learn how important that is for your comprehension. People who struggle with reading may struggle just to break down a word, right? If they struggle to break down a word and they know where to pause when they're reading, they understand it. So it's, you can demonstrate good reading, you know, like read to them out loud so they hear what good, and that way you can emphasize the important parts, you know. Okay, so questions, thoughts, concerns?
Well, I was just gonna say, do you remember when you were in school and, you know, you were the fourth person in the row and they were going down paragraph by paragraph, and what, you didn't hear any of that, you just concentrated on paragraph number 4, so when you read out loud, you know, you could read it with some kind of fluency. And so, you know, just things like that doesn't work because they didn't hear anything. James also says to me, like, he says he wants to learn how to read like I read, right? That when I talk and, you know, read a sentence.
Yeah, that's, you know, I'm street smart. Other words,
Yeah.
and nothing is true you can't tell me or show me. All that. Be honest is garbage. When you get here, that's when you're smart. And like I tell her all the time, you know, she make me go back over, and a lot of things like I just spit it out. What I mean was, okay, what I mean by spit it out, I can read it to her. But I want to read like y'all, you know what I'm saying? You know, I want to.
Well, I just want to tell you one thing that, and you might get this in your classes, you may not. If you look at the word that, T-H-A-T, he doesn't know that word. He doesn't know those sounds. What was it? Dat. D-A-T. So just in that kind of thing, you know, you have to, so you can read T-H-A-T, but if you, how do I say this? He's not listening to that. You can't hear that. Because that's not what he's listened to. That's not what you've heard, right? Remember those times?
It makes it that much harder.
And so it makes it that much harder.
And this is, I mean, so you're going to have some students who are struggling at this level, and then some of their parents also, right? So if you're sending home letters or reports, you know, some parents who don't come in, they're not comfortable with school, and that's why. I mean, there's a full range of reasons.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be like, oh, you know, everybody has, you know, full excuses for whatever, but sometimes a note that gets sent home, and you've already talked about, or you have some other ways to talk about English language learners. I mean, that too, like the familiarity with how schools work is very different. You know,
a lot of times, I ain't trying to, you know, I'm just a lot of times, it get hard.
Yeah. So your kids brought home notes, your other son.
No, boy, back to school, yeah. But I used to feel awkward. No, I kind of went to school actually.
Okay.
So that,
Because a lot of parents used to
I would go,
Yeah.
you know, school or
Well, you could do that. You had the time and you had the.
Yeah.
But some parents wouldn't.
some parents be, you know, like, I ain't got time, but it really honestly, why I did sit there, like, that don't work. And his child, right, he's gonna have to be, so if he could, he would send you paper back to the school from the parent. A lot of, you know, the shame, you know, that's where I was ashamed, and but I always, my shame came to my fame. Okay, my shame came to my, what I could do, how I can play, what my skill was, and I don't been from Raleigh, Jacksonville, Kinston, Goldsboro. I was the first DJ that ever played the blues house on Myrtle Beach. You know, you know, but.
But
it
you
was-
still couldn't read your son's papers
No.
from school, so.
I was, by the time I would go to my oldest daughter and let her tell me, you know, what was going on. And I felt bad because I'm your daddy, but you got to tell me, you know. But like I say, it'll never be where he might go, no, you haven't been taught too long.
And kids are gonna avoid, you know, they don't wanna get identified.
Yeah.
They don't want to
wanna-
be different.
Yeah, and so they're going to sort of demonstrate their coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
So it may take a little time before you can figure out sort of what's going on with somebody. Like, he's not just being lazy, he's
Trying to
really
cope.
struggling with it. The things that, in terms of teaching strategies, that we really emphasize at the Literacy Council, first of all, is it's active learning. That learning should be as engaging as possible. That it's bad that right now I'm just presenting to you. You know, I mean, like, we should be having a discussion. And I actually do have all these ideas for, like, you know, like a case study that you would discuss and then we would analyze, but we're not gonna have time for it. But you want to engage your students as much as possible. And again, start by relating it, whatever you're working on, to something that they really already do know, and are, you know, like that they have a leaping off point, or you know, ask them to make a prediction about something, so that they're kind of, it draws their attention into why they're, and even if they're just seeing like, oh, was I right or wrong about how this is going to work out. Of course, with science, that is, you know, having I mean, that's all part of the process, right? But it's great to try to apply that kind of thinking to other areas. Math, I think, can be very difficult because of the concepts, but as much as possible, hands-on manipulatives, you know, like M&Ms and or whatever you have to do to literally count, to take away, to show distributions, to graph, you know, but make it be as hands-on, as interactive, because there are probably some students that can tell you all kinds of things but can't write it the way they want to. So you really want to engage them. If you can, break things down into very small pieces, very small as you can, and as much repetition as possible. If you can involve people's senses in different ways, so, you know, watch a movie, listen to, let's say you're doing something, is this social studies? Social studies, okay. That, you know, if you're focused on some era in history, the music of the time, the pictures, I mean, now with the technology, of course, you would do all of that. And I'm sure you know these things, right? But some people get so much out of, you know, one form of information. I'm the kind of person, I do have to sit and take notes. But my husband pointed out, like, a lot of kids can't listen and take notes at the same time. So maybe you hand out notes that are, you know, you write the notes and you have them highlight with different colors so they have a system for, you know, identifying what's important to them or what is going to be on the test. Because now they have to, you know, like, it's all about testing, of course.
Right. Well, the other thing is, you know, I think too, is that always, you know, I always, and I've learned this, not just with you, but with other kids, you know, I have all the markers in my room. I don't expect them to bring, because they won't, you know, I mean, they're middle school kids. They forget it, and they're thinking about many other things. But also, you know, you got to also have the IEPs of the kids that are your special kids. You're you know, and you're working with their populations too. And what I've found over the years is sometimes what works for them obviously works for the others too. So, you know, you can teach to their needs, but you're still, you know, you're still teaching to the whole. So it's not like one and the other, you know, it's not like you have to separate them out.
And basic to all of this, relationships. If a student doesn't have a relationship with you, there's not a trust element. It's going to be very difficult for some students to learn from you.
I call it recognize. Once you one-on-one, the most majority of me was, I'm not smart teacher. You know, in other words, I was trying to do like, I wasn't trying to, I knew I couldn't read, and I knew I couldn't outsmart her. But I know once she broke the ice with me, that it was a perfect sale, you know, because I learned you trust.
But even today,
You know.
he told me my tires on my car need to be rotated. So, and I'll learn, I'll do it. I won't do it, no, I'll get it done, I'm not gonna do it. So, you know,
just looking
but
out
that's
for
just,
her.
yeah, right, that's.
Right.
And there are people, right, so there are different forms of, different modes of learning, visual.
Visual,
I think you probably know a lot of these. One of the key ones, though, is kinesthetic, which is having your hands on. You've learned this. So, like, one thing that I did with an adult learner, he was struggling with spelling. Of course, it's the hardest part. We use Scrabble tiles. He's the kind of person. He's the kind of person that can fix things, and so literally being able to put his hands on and move it around, it made a difference for him, and you know, it can be kind of revelational. So, I mean, I imagine you are going through interesting coursework that presents all of these kinds of ideas, but you know, I guess talk to other teachers and find out what works for them, and you know, if you can talk to students individually, try. Some of the things that I was thinking about in terms of reading for content area, because you know, with the core standards, like there's so much more emphasis now on reading. I mean, and on reading nonfiction, and on reading, you know, sort of related, more technical kinds of content. There are strategies called, there's skimming, which is looking at the headings and then just sort of like getting an idea of where something goes. You're not, you know, you might want to practice this with your students that the first time they look at a piece of text, they're not trying to read word for word what's in there. They're just looking at like maybe the titles and, you know, lead into paragraphs, and at the very end, what is their conclusion, or there's like an executive summary. Like focus on the sort of biggest picture first.
Like I do every morning with the paper.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Skim it, what are you gonna put your time in?
Where are you
Exactly.
going to spend your time, right? Like what actually matters to you, or what piques your curiosity, or what, you know, and then you go back and you scan that section, and that is where you sort of have some questions in mind that you want to answer, and as a teacher, probably you want to provide those questions for the kids, because they're not going to come up with them on their own. But, you know, you have them scan and try to answer some questions. And then the next time they read it, it may really be word for word and trying to understand and discuss. So that they've been exposed to at least 3 times in some way before they're responsible for that knowledge. Another thing is, you know, for some kids, doing this really works as they're going. I've heard now, too,
Works
of
for you,
doing,
that works. Yeah.
that you can do this, so it forces you to keep going.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. My
Oh.
coworker was saying that you kind of push yourself to keep going with it.
So, but rather than having under each line,
Yeah.
you have it over.
Yeah.
You have it
I don't know, I mean, that would be very individual.
Mhm.
So a lot of people have trouble. Black print on white paper is the hardest thing to read. If you can print on, if you can copy things on like an off-white, I noticed you have a pink pad, but it's actually easier on the eye. The contrast is a lot easier if you can print, but you know, it's more expensive.
Yeah, but to be honest, you would know, you know, because he only going to choose what he knows. He's not going to dominate what you're saying, but he's only going to mark the word that he knows. And it could be
You
the
might
same.
not get all of them.
Yeah, he leaped from it because you don't understand. So, I'm gonna put down what I know. You know, if I get it-
Also, games work, don't they?
Yeah,
We do
yeah.
a lot of
There's
different
some-
kinds of, trying not to be too juvenile. Science, I used to do charades, believe it or not. even with chemistry, it was kind of crazy, but it worked.
Do you have questions?
I'm ready, hey, you know.
I know you have thoughts and
You know,
questions
come
there.
on, come on, you know.
One question I have is, how far along are you in your learning?
Well, I got a new book today. It's level 2.
Level 2.
Do you find that it's easier in life knowing what you already know to like learn different? Do you like my thoughts and strategy? For what you already know, do you feel like it's easier that you can read some things instead of not being able to read at all?
Well, see, that's when the teacher came in. Just like, let's see, Monday, she was on the boat. She took me up on the boat. She used to me supposed to be on the side. And she was on the boat, how was your day? And how I knew she was writing that if she didn't, was actually, I told her, I said, you know what? I know what you're doing. And I, you know what she was doing that, I've been with George a long time. I said, but can you read? You know,
Just trying to quiz you, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Different angle.
Yeah, so she kind of like was testing her ability if she wasting her time with me, or is she this? You ain't learning that, you know.
We're writing a book right now, but it's his words, okay? So it's interesting to see them in writing, and then now he has to read them back. So there's, you know, that kind of
That's
thing.
called the
Yeah.
language
He learned how to
experience
vote,
approach.
you know, he just voted for the first
It's
time.
called what?
Language experience approach is when the student tells you a story and you capture it. You know, you type it and then they read it back to you. So it's all in their own words, and you can actually use that then as an opportunity for working on grammar, vocabulary, all of that.
Did you write it exactly how it's
Exactly,
said?
that's right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
All that time, I'm doing a book of my life. My high DJ, how many people I beat playing music, how many people. I just have a phone. On a Thursday night, I couldn't go to sleep with 4 people calling for different towns, you know. But to this day, nobody knows. That's the hardest part.
What about your girlfriends?
But then, yeah.
I called them wives one time.
Oh, wives.
No.
Yeah,
Remember, you know
tell
what
me,
you
how
said
did
to
you
me?
do that?
Oh, they're not wives.
I just tell her, you know, I learned. But then I have where I'm at fail in the, well, I know I ain't now, but I used to fail in reading math or conversation. You can't beat math.
So math was easier for you?
Yeah, 'cause I count money.
That's right.
You know,
That's
'cause
interesting.
people will cheat you. You say you do 60-40. You might give me the 40 and you keep 60.
That's right.
So I always try to do, you know, you know,
So you have to, you know, whatever the strengths are, obviously, you have to build on those and then work the other stuff in. But, you know, just by talking to him, you know, he'd say, I used to go to Piggly Wiggly, and there's one over the bridge in Leland. So I write down what is that? You know, and then you sound it out, and then all of a sudden it's Piggly Wiggly. So then that's part of his, you know, his reading. So, you know, it's just, you gotta, you know, that old thing, you have to go where they are.
Yeah, that's true.
You know,
Yeah,
you have to meet them where they are, or else, you know.
It's so for you to get something out of it, really, you can't shove it, you know, you draw, you lost your time. You know, you got to have it really, I always felt like I wanted to read, so that was my driving instinct.
That's good.
Yeah.
But don't you find that a lot of students that come in they're there for they have a goal, right?
It's-
And that's
but
what
it's-
you have to.
We have a lot of adults that come to us. To be honest, probably at least a full third don't come back after the first or second time.
I wondered that.
It's a lot of work.
Is that right?
It's hard. It's probably harder than what they
Stress.
expected it to be. They have families, they have jobs, it's a lot of, you know, it's a lot to add into your life. So, but the people who stay with it do make remarkable progress. But it's hard, it's slow, it depends on where you're starting from, it depends on how much time you can put into homework. It depends on how clear your motivations are, but it does remain inspiring. I just want to be sensitive to your time.
Yes.
Because I know you have a
Okay, but
presentation to do with.
the party make the whole thing.
We have fun. And that's probably the hard part with middle schoolers.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, James.
Yeah, lots of lovely.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr. Hilburn, for letting us come into your
Yes,
class
thank you.
today. It's been a wonderful experience, connecting what you will learn and continue to learn, see some practical